would commend my soul, or surely I would die by the hand of a techie.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're discussing Shogun Episode 2. This episode brings us back to the death of the former Taiko 1 year before the events of Episode 1. All the important players gather around the dying man, giving enough space for his loved ones, but close enough to be a part of his passing. We get this shot of Toranaga and the other two regents, his eyes bowed before the tender moment between husband and wife, and the other two are trained on them, studying his weakest moment. His wife brings up the great Buddha, wanting him to focus on this to find some kind of solace in his dying moments. This line is meant to establish the norm 1 year prior, before the entire conversation was some form of Christianity. It feels like it's saying that this was the dominant faith, and 1 year after this man's passing, another religion runs rampant. This brief line helps to establish one of the overarching points of conflict, as they want us to question why Christianity in this land is having the impact that it is. He calls over his son, Yachio, who surely does not understand death and the loss that he will consider for the rest of his life in this moment. The Taiko has a line about his beautiful eyes reminding him of the boy's mother. Toranaga looks at Fumi, who has some kind of smile, like maybe something is here. It's an odd moment, and the timing makes it feel like they are hinting that Yachio is actually Toranaga's son, but I'm not exactly sure. It would align with the father figure status that he has kind of developed at this point, but only time will tell. Also, I'm writing this after episode 5 is aired, but I will not be spoiling anything, even if I know one way or another. This is just a quick theory. The Taiko says that life is strange, just a dream of a dream. And I love this. I'm sure any fan of this channel knew that my ears perked up as soon as I heard this. My first thought was to Edgar Allan Poe. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream, which I have on this coffee mug because I love thinking about our perceptions of reality first thing in the morning, but it's actually a quote from the man himself. The author created a version of this historical poem for his book, and this was the actual poem in comparison. He tells his son goodbye, his wife dismisses the room, and then again the mother of the heir of this land makes sexy eyes at Toranaga. It's an interesting scandal, but we really don't know too much more about how they are linked at this point, so I'm not going to really go too much into it. We see the Catholic priest advising one of the soon-to-be regents, and Fumi provides some good thoughts on this faith that they're about to be spreading here. Toranaga is asked to stay, and then the former Taiko talks about how they know each other, and Toranaga possibly being married to her in another life. It's further building this mysterious backstory, but he kindly disagrees with the thought and jokes about not enjoying beautiful women. And they talk like old friends. It kind of assures me that Toranaga does have a good heart and does wish to protect this man's child in death. In fact, he loves Toranaga so much that if they had been successful capturing Korea, all of Japan would have been given to him. I think that's kind of insane, and really creates a power structure. Like, the regents are all peers, but in reality, Toranaga is the dude. Toranaga is offered to be the sole protector until Yachio is ready to lead, but Toranaga doesn't operate like that. We know that. He declines, fearing the target on his head that would have been created. These are close friends, as the dialogue just established, so I know that the former Taiko knows how Toranaga operates, which is why moments later he reveals the plan for him to lead with the 4 others. He wants Toranaga, specifically, to protect his child, but he's wise, and he knows that the other powerful families are looking for opportunities. They are vultures circling and trying to unite against the transition of a mighty leader to a weak boy who is still learning. So what do? You make them all a little bit more powerful. You create this stalemate where no one can advance without appearing dishonorable. Toranaga is the only one he wants protecting the child, in my eyes. But he created a plan where Toranaga would excel, where he could operate like his friend knows that he does, which, man, it really makes me want to have a flashback to show these early days, perhaps like a bond between these two, like the fight in Korea, or the hidden past of Toranaga, or the mysterious uprising that we talk about a little bit later in this video. We then see the intro for the first time, all the homes on shifting sand, the music that made me feel like I was about to watch the first episode of Westworld for the very first time. Dear God, this is a good intro. someone do a study of this intro, of Black Sails, of Westworld, of Game of Thrones. Find a commonality between all of those. Find the perfect BPM, some assembly of whatever sounds make every single one, and you have literally a formula to create fucking blockbuster intros every single time. Swear to God. But never mind. We come back to the Catholic Scourge discussing what they found on John's ship. It's the logs that show their true intentions and misdeeds, like we talked about in the previous breakdown. Plunder and then set up trade is their objective. That is why John is here. They discuss giving the information to Toranaga as absolute proof of his piracy, but fears the entries that show a hidden Portuguese settlement in Macao. This develops another point of conflict in this equation that will likely come into play as a big force against Toranaga at some point in the series. They talk about how worrying this is for them and cite not needing any discussion of past entanglements. To me, this feels like it is possibly related to what happened to Mariko's past or Toranaga's past. The reasons, like there is something that the Portuguese did that we still need a little bit more information about. They include this line about the mission being critical and how he is to ensure that this man is taken care of. It's ominous, and it serves to create this narrative that they are willing to do anything that it takes to make this happen, to make what they want happen. Saying perhaps even the bad things, the things that God would frown upon, could be done if it means that they can continue to serve their God and the ends justify the means. This line builds the drama that is the translation process between, two people wanting to talk to each other in different languages and how that can be misconstrued at times. And it makes the moments where he is translating feel like they could go either way. We then come to the meeting of our fated cast. Lord Yachio asks the father about the barbarians being cannibals, and then the father meets John, who is not happy that his words may once again be twisted by a man of the faith. We learn this man's named Martin, and he is not just the translator for this moment, but translator for the entire Council of Regents, which is a major role. Already, we can imagine how this man, who is in this position of power, could influence things that benefit him and his people, in a way that they probably shouldn't. John is apprehensive at first, but eventually I think he realizes his words are not being twisted by this man of the cloth, because he's not a pawn. He's not taking the obvious bait that would out him to Toranaga as not being true to his translations. He wants to keep his power, his influence, so he does his job in front of the thorough eyes watching him. He says that they are enemies because their countries are at war, and the translator adds a little note about the countries being 1,000 miles away from each other. I think this is because the Portuguese have not been very forthcoming with the information about the outside world. I don't think at this point they knew about a country called England or a war between Portugal and anybody else. After some nice back and forth between John and Toranaga, with the translator edited out from the conversation entirely toward the end, Toranaga feels like he has assessed this individual and does fear what another outsider or another outside country could mean for Japan. John bows again, and the father does a nicety here by telling John about the power of the man, of Lord Ishido, entering the room and also telling him to bow if he values his life. Lord Ishido finds it odd that the barbarian is here at all and tells him that he is just trying to keep the peace and remove the person that offends the community. What he is truly saying, though, is that the other lords want this man out of the equation, and while Toranaga smiles and says that he cares little for the fate of an outsider, he knows his worth. He knows that there's some reason that Lord Ishido is actually here. He is somehow a thorn in the side of higher people in Japan, of a faith, of a people that he may at some point be at odds with. So Toranaga continues to play his cards close to his chest. John is taken to a prison cell, and we meet Mariko's son, who enjoys a nice laugh with his mother. Then, of course, we meet Buntaro. Now, this honorable piece of trash is just one of those characters that you're meant to hate, which means there's a reason, which means they're probably going to make us like him later. I won't say too much as I have watched ahead, but I'm pretty sure, to me, anytime that you're ever made to feel like such strong hatred toward a character, there's always a reason to do this. Like, who is doing things that are just universally seen as bad by people outside of the show, by people inside of the show. It's just, there's a reason to do them, This is a bad guy. But with modern stories, we love this morally gray redemption arc meta, and it's just, it's just one of those things people can sit and think about, what we're going to permit as long as the ends justify the means. So if he is eventually a loved character or redeems himself in some kind of way, that I'm not going to be surprised. Laughter is just not permitted for men, it seems, as his presence silences the room. Buntaro cannot believe that Mariko was invited by Toranaga to be a translator. It feels like he is about to rage when Hiromatsu enters, and Buntaro addresses him as father. They need Mariko for another meeting, and we can only imagine the rage that she's going to experience behind closed doors when all is said and done. Buntaro feels jaded already, but at this point, perhaps now he believes that she is called to serve for good reasons. Now that it's a man saying it, now that it's her father saying it, though, I'm not too sure. They arrive at Lord Toranaga's private quarters, and we meet Kiri, who is Toranaga's wife, and then we also meet the mother of Toranaga's son. The poly lifestyle in full effect in this culture, with far fewer consent workshops and power dynamic TikTok videos to reference. So I'm sure that, that's probably not being done in the best way. But they say they haven't met in 16 years, and that was when she was first married. It's a sore subject for reasons still unknown. Toranaga enters with his falcon, and he and his wife have a nice back and forth, again showing how he differs from the other relationships that we see, how he allows people and loved ones to joke with him. Our only other sample of the home lifestyle of this period is moments ago with Buntaro. And I think it creates a nice spectrum to show what this power dynamic could actually exist as. It's somewhere, most of them probably fell somewhere in the spectrum, right? They discussed the meeting that happened earlier. Mariko sharing that the father did not deceive them and that she was guarded again towards John. I'm sure that this is intended, but man, my first thought was enemies to lovers. Like, she is guarding against him because she is crushing. And no spoilers, we'll see what happens. Toranaga asks directly about his faith, which opposes hers. And she says that this kind of affirms her faith, like it wouldn't be strong if it was not tested from time to time. Finally, Hiromatsu breaks the silence, acting as the audience here by asking what anything with the barbarian has to do with the upcoming impeachment and ending of his own life, with why this fascination exists at all and so suddenly. Toranaga outright says that he is curious about John because he troubles the Portuguese. A quick TLDR from Mariko tells us that he wants to use John to create a divide between Lord Ishido and the Christian lords. Though at this point, it's really not clear to me how John is going to do that. And I'm not sure how Toranaga knew John was going to do that. It seems like it's just, maybe there's something we're missing, or maybe that is the complete picture and Toranaga is just that guy, right? He's just that far ahead. He's playing 4D chess. But again, when I first watched this, I was kind of confused at how John was meant to be a thorn in their sides at all. Though again, in retrospect, now that I'm breaking the episode down, I think it's much easier to understand. We then see the prison cell and a name of a mysterious, unknown, probably not important man being called out. He walks through the gate, receives last rites, and moments later is killed in front of them. It is a gruesome foreshadow of what's to come. But we meet another white man who looks at him and internally went, oh shit, that's a white man. They talk about being of different faiths and about what comes next. The father explains everything to John about Toranaga being a prisoner to Osaka. And thank you, comments, for correcting me. Osaka, got you. And about the rivals that he faces. It's a bit of an exposition dump, but hey, it got him and all of us up to speed with all of the other rivals that we have. So let's get into it. First off, we have Kiyama, who is a fake Christian that goes money, 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 money whenever he sees it. I wish the description would have been a little bit better than that, but truthfully, that was kind of what they gave us. Sugiyama is a descendant of the wealthiest family in Japan. The implications are already setting a low standard for who they choose to decide the fate of an entire country with. Money kind of being the thing here. Ono was a once revered samurai and is now a bastion of the church after Hansen's disease, also known as leprosy, consumed his life, making him seek God and a way to hide his face from the world. Then we have Lord Ishido. This is the leader of the group, kind of controlling the strings of everybody else. It's not exactly clear how he got the power that he did. I want to say it's probably not as just so openly corrupt as the others, but I do hope we get more information about this going forward. The father tells John that if Toranaga claimed him as an ally, he will not leave here alive. In my last video, I talked about the foreshadowing of John's death, and this continues here. It is quite obviously meant to create an obstacle for John to overcome. We are rooting for our hero to live. But truly, if he gets to understand this world better and chooses his own honorable death for a cause that's greater than himself, I think he may take that. We get the scene with Lord Ishido, showing us the sleeping quarters being transformed into an open dining room, his men operating quickly and quietly to dress and get everything ready. He stares at his armor, perhaps only now realizing that he's going to have to wear it again, or perhaps maybe reliving glory days about how things used to be. They set him up at some kind of desk where he stamps the coolest stamp in the world and stares at the former Taiko's armor, the weight of his actions weighing on him in some capacity. He then sits with the other regents as they discuss his excellent leadership and the call to put an end to Toranaga once and for all, which is when something rather odd happens. He wants to vote on Toranaga's impeachment, but they refuse. They want to see the barbarian killed before anything else goes forward. It's rather strange that this matters as much as it does. Even now, strange. The regents that are benefiting from Jesus Christ capitalism, defined as, taking money as a way that the church can lobby inside of this power structure, they want this man dead because they know that he knows a grave secret that others don't, and that's about, Macao. They don't want this secret getting out, but it is truly insane to me that this is the thing that stops them from voting Toranaga out in this moment, right? Like, why not just vote? Why not? Is there 2 votes? Can you not do 2 votes? Like, perhaps the bureaucracy here could have played further into that. There is a line about it, but maybe they could have included a line about only addressing a single issue at a time, and that's idiotic policy that makes bureaucracy feel bad at times. I'm not really sure. I'm just saying I don't know why they didn't vote. It's really not clear how this was Toranaga's plan at all, nor why they stopped voting because the barbarian was in prison and not dead. Whatever the reason is, it worked. I really don't want to nitpick this, but again, on my first watch, it did confuse me. Lord Ishido bites his tongue, but agrees to an expedited execution ordered for the barbarian. Well, biting his tongue isn't exactly right. He outright accuses them of favoring this order to kill this man because the church is lining their pockets to do so. It's rather direct, but again, pride. You can't be offended. This is just them talking. There is no further accusation. So, he's just talking. They're just hanging out. They're just gal pals. The father talks about the family that Toranaga comes from, essentially saying that he's a real one. He is a Minawara, a powerful bloodline descendant from the previous shogun. John asks if Toranaga seeks this end-all be-all rank, to which the father laughs, saying that nobody could know what is in his heart. I think describing this as a heart is purposeful. They could have said, who knows what lurks deep inside, or that man cloaks everything, even the simplest intention and mystery. But they don't. They say the same word that we just learned last episode, every person has 3 of. It seems like if Toranaga truly is playing the longest con for the throne, moments like this are the subtle setup and will make rewatching this a blast. This tiny detail, suddenly just an alarm in our ears saying it's been here from the very beginning. Just a theory, but another prisoner is called, the room goes quiet, and John watches a man's final moments. The father tells John that he would be fighting right alongside him if, he were a younger man. He came here a couple decades prior and then learned the true tenets of the faith that operates here. Silk, gold, and guns. They don't care to convert. Save souls. They want money. He says, the the black ship is the only idol that they now worship. It is a damning accusation. Apparently, the late Taiko tried to stop the Portuguese at one point, but the church incited a rebellion. Something tells me this relates to Mariko's or Toranaga's backstory, shaping their worldviews in some way, though again, I'm not exactly sure. He brings up Macao, a secret base that's filled with thousands of soldiers converted to the cloth. John realizes that Toranaga probably doesn't know that this base exists and wishes to use this revelation for his release. We then meet this fearsome man. The captain talks to the father about Toranaga not approving his departure yet. Something we really haven't talked about is Toranaga's role in this country. He is in charge of Edo, which is just a large part of the country, I believe, but he is also in charge of the foreign relations. So anything in or out must go through him. Toranaga, being distracted from signing these papers and possibly now suspicious that the Portugal are up to something, means the captain is not in motion and not moving, the money printing machine not printing. The father talks to Mariko about being a good student and insists that John is a dangerous man. He also leans into a previous time where he helped her through a dark situation. I won't spoil it, but essentially, she went to the father after having some dark thoughts, and he brings these up to remind her of the services that he has done for her to make her more willing to see the unsavory light they shine on this barbarian. I think that she sees through it, like, right away. Not saying as much, like, out loud, but her face is speaking volumes. We then see Yabushiki, his hand miming the air like he's about to topple or grab Osaka Castle. It's rather odd, and he quickly stops when Lord Ishido enters to talk to him. He starts the conversation with a reminder of his good deeds to Yabushiki, just like the Catholic did to Mariko last scene. They were old war buddies, apparently. Ishido saving him from a mountain of Korean corpses, which may be literal, which may be kind of a metaphor for something else. They talk like good friends, but Lord Ishido clearly does not view their relationship as such. There's a much more, there's an exchange going here. Like, he's here for a reason, not companionship. He wants something. He questions why Yabushiki pledged loyalty to Toranaga at all, and then gets to the root of his visit. He wants privileged information, and Yabushiki discloses without probably ever thinking otherwise. He includes a note about John hating the Portuguese, which I really doubt Toranaga would want his men sharing with the other lords. It's an interesting exchange and dynamic, but it starts the narrative about Yabushiki changing sides or playing both sides in this power struggle. It's hard to tell, even right now, being caught up in current, like, who he is actually rooting for, whose cause he wants to champion. And I think the truth is that he's just out for himself, and he's doing whatever he needs to do to get by, though like, he's not doing as good of a job as Toranaga is, Yabushiki comes out of nowhere with this plan for Ishido to not contend with the Christian lords after Toranaga is impeached, and that he could use the anti-Portuguese Christian to his advantage. It's kind of like, I have no idea where this came from, but it kind of shows that Yabushiki is really trying to be a contender. He is really trying to think ahead. He is essentially trying to give the plan to Ishido that Toranaga is currently doing. And then, of course, we come to the man himself. John swears that this is not where he dies, disregarding again the prayers of a father, and then gets this terrifying white piece of paper over his face. They walk through the jungle and then get ambushed. The implication immediately clear that this was Yabushiki's doing. John is truly a pawn in this game, and it makes this being our perspective of the world feel like this massive uphill battle. I love it. He is like not an active player. He is literally just watching what happens to him, like we are. And it's really good. Yabushiki does show up, and he pays the men, and then unceremoniously kills them all. He is staging the crime to look like a mercenary attack that he and his men stopped. The scene is incredible, finished by John saying thank you in Japanese, and Yabushiki mocking him like a dog, even getting him to say it back. And again, incredible. I love this. We see Toranaga about to meet with John after Yabushiki brings him in. Toranaga makes it fully clear that he understands what Yabushiki did. But like everything else, there's no direct call-outs about making this play. It is, making eyes at each other to establish dominance and love. And this scene also includes the Taiko's son, which I think is meant to show us that Toranaga isn't doing things under the radar like everybody else. There's not a regent council meeting that continues forever that doesn't involve him. He is leading, protecting, and including this child so that he can learn. He is honoring his former master's wishes. Mariko and John introduce themselves, and then Toranaga apologizes for sending him to prison. He asks John about his country, the rulers and their customs. At first, John is quite taken back, but assures them that the queen is seeking allies and not enemies. John is asked to draw a map, and my ears immediately perked up. This was rather exciting because it shows that he is actively looking for discrepancies in their knowledge of the world influenced by the Portuguese. He points out Japan, England, and the secret Portuguese path that they traveled. He then leans into the moment, realizing that he can share the information about the secret base in Macao with the most important man himself. There are a few gasps, but mainly people look to Toranaga for how to react, and I think that speaks volumes to the power and status that men can have in this society. John shares more information about the operation. It's gun running, and without any fluff, he is revealing why the Christian lords are having their pockets filled. This secret base has Japanese mercenaries and was used during an uprising some years ago. Though again, it is information very quickly passed over, and it makes me think this is the most important information that they don't want us to hark on right now. Eventually, they'll reveal it to us when they want to. Something either related to Toranaga's past, Mariko's past, or some mystery about how the regents claimed the power that they did. Mariko thinks the guns were used against them in the uprising against the Taiko, but she isn't sure. I am sure that she is right, though, because I mean, it makes sense, right? This is like the hidden past. Like, reveal it. Let's see what it is. Toranaga believes it fully, wanting a complete map of the Portuguese bases. John leans into the moment and talks about how Japan is owned by Portugal, that they have rights to do whatever they want in this land because of how their European leaders divided the world. This angers Toranaga, fully understanding his status and probably feeling a strong urge to once again unify Japan and stop this outside invasion of a foreign captor. John brings up all Portuguese operators being given the power to lay claim to any Catholic land and replace the government with Catholic rule. It's a claim that Mariko does question. Like, eventually she believes that he is sincere after praying and swearing upon his God and gives the word to Toranaga. She phrases it better. The Portuguese want to replace all non-Christian leaders with rulers that they own. It's a line that resonates with Toranaga, who has been feeling the tendrils of this corruption for some time. I hope we get more information about the complete breadcrumb trail that led to him being so anti-Catholic, but if we don't, we have the point in which this threat becomes real to him. You know, it's when a dirty outsider tells the truth about the outsiders pretending not to be dirty. Toranaga tells John that he should give up on this fight. He is outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, and outplanned. John wants to make a stand. And for the first time in this translation session, Mariko does not summarize his words. She repeats them directly. It's a bold statement, and it makes Toranaga smile because his back is also against the wall, going 4 versus 1, impossible odds, and he also fully believes that he can do it. He smiles and probably thinks, hey yo, I'm going to need a right-hand man. It's a great moment that earns Toranaga's respect, but more importantly, it gets him an invite to the palace tonight. He warns of the danger, looking at Yabushige about the bandits that lurk around every corner. This feels like another moment that, in retrospect, if there is a big twist with Toranaga, this could be a subtle foreshadow of his pull on the strings of fate. On the surface, it's meant to come across as just a jab to Yabushige. After Toranaga leaves, we come to the palace where Mariko says that Toranaga gave him his private room, a point of importance for later on. Mariko says that she has spoken Portuguese for as long as she has been a Christian, 14 years. This is 2 years after her marriage to Buntaro. Again, I think it's all just to establish that there may be a flashback coming to show, this uprising or some formidable moment in her life. She offers him a bath, and he says,
"But that was some time ago."
2 baths in a week. What, do you want me to catch the flux?
They can't believe that he doesn't want to bathe, and John pleads with Mariko to not favor her Christian lords over Toranaga. She politely tells him to mind his own fucking business and not speak out of turn, and to address her with Sama appended to her name, an honorific meaning that the person that you're addressing is of higher rank or status than you are. It's it's just a respect thing. The father pleads for Toranaga to send off the black ship, saying that otherwise they would be behind schedule, and those prophets gotta profit. Toranaga, now fully aware of the game that's being played, does not send off that ship. Instead, holds its departure until he knows more about the secret bases that this church has been building. It's certainly the worst case scenario for this man, but he can only offer silence as he takes an L. Back with Kiyama and the other important man of the cloth, they report about the black ship being barred from leaving. Kiyama takes on the burden, and it sets the stage for the assassination attempt. She walks in, starts stabbing, and the palace is awake and running. She is a monster. The scene is tense. It is awesome. She was a maid that spent her entire life for this kill. She enters the room of the Anjin, expecting to see him, but gets a bad cut to the back of her neck instead. I'm not sure if I'm reading into more depth than is truly here, but this angle, it feels like he had a clean cut. He is a great warrior, and we've seen other heads roll before when lesser honorable samurai did this. Like last episode, we saw this happen. So it feels like maybe he purposefully did not cut as deep as he could have. I think he wanted her to have this painful death. This entire thing was a seemingly omniscient play, and it worked. They have the information that they need. The Christian lords and the Portuguese Catholics want the engine dead, and now Toranaga knows how important he is. But with that, we come to the end of the video. Another great episode, and thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. Much love, everybody, and I cannot wait to talk to you all again soon.